Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Audit Committee for August 18th, 2025. I'm Elliot Payne and I'm the chair of this committee. I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members and staff and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so that we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Committee member Chuktai is absent. Hosbein.
Present.
Omar is absent. Thompson is absent. Williams.
Present.
Vice Chair Singleton.
Present.
Chair Payne.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Colleagues, our agenda is before us. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. That carries and the agenda is adopted. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes from our June 2nd, 2025 meeting. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. That carries and the June 2nd minutes are accepted. We have 2 items in new business today. We'll begin with item 3, which is an update report from the Police Department on actions related to recommendations from the 2024 MPD Fleet Management Audit. I will now invite Commander Justin Risdorfer, Administrative Services Division, to give that presentation. Mr. Timmerman.
Good morning, Chair Payne. If you don't mind, and I should have stepped up when you were approving the agenda, but if you don't mind switching items 3 and 4, it doesn't seem that we have MPD representation here, and they were planning to provide an update. So if we can present on the new audit report first and see if their representation comes, and if they don't, we still have information to present, but that'll give them an opportunity to attend.
Okay, without objection, I think we can move forward with that. So we will take up item number 4 next, which is third-party software systems use and controls consultation report. And we will welcome up Mr. Pudyal.
Good morning, Chair Payne and the members of the committee. We recently completed the third-party software systems use and control advisory service report, and Ella King is one of those senior auditors, and I would like to present the results of those report. And also, I'd like to thank IT management and the City Attorney's Office for assisting us to complete this review as well. So we have listed the contents of the presentation, starting from the objective, scope and approach, background, contract clause compliance, conclusion, and the results. So the objective of the review was to review the processes and controls related to the IT department's use of third-party software and applications with external parties. We assessed against best practices such as those established by ISACA, NIST, and the Cloud Security Alliance. So we focused on SaaS providers from January 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. We focused on evaluating the design and effectiveness of the controls related to the city's use of the third-party software as a service, which in short is called SaaS systems. This includes assessing governance, operational management, and contractual safeguards in place to ensure appropriate oversight, compliance, and data protection, and risk mitigation throughout the third-party software lifecycle. So this advisory service involved a review of relevant documentation, contracts, policies, and procedures related to the use and management of third-party SaaS applications across city departments. The engagement focused on systems active during the defined review period and included collaborative discussions and key stakeholders from the Information Technology Department and City Attorney's Office to gain insight into existing practices and control considerations. So basically, as a part of the scope, there are like two main categories. So the first one is the governance. So as a part of the governance, we assess whether city has established and documented policy and procedures for vendor selection, contract negotiation, and ongoing oversight to ensure proper risk management and compliance in SaaS agreements. We reviewed a sample of executed contracts and service level agreements with critical vendors to determine whether security, confidentiality, and non-performance expectations are clearly defined and contractually enforceable. We also determined whether contractual documents clearly specify reporting relationships and define responsibilities for both the city and the service providers. We also evaluated whether vendor provide independent assessment reports and whether such reports are reviewed and considered for in vendor selection and the risk assessment as well. In addition, we reviewed evidence of contractual assurance processes involving the City Attorney's Office, information security, and business stakeholders to confirm all relevant legal and operational risks are addressed during the contract development as well. We also reviewed SaaS contract language to determine whether data protection responsibilities include ownership, breach handling, and retention, whether they are clearly defined as well, and also verified that third-party contracts include required signatures and specify effective date and contract duration to support legal enforceability and lifecycle tracking. As a part of the operations, we determined whether third-party vendors designed a specific point of contact responsible for service delivery, issue resolution, and contract compliance. We also reviewed documentation identifying subcontractors, if any, used by service providers, and verified that such arrangements are disclosed and governed through contractual provisions. We also evaluated whether confidentiality and PII protection clauses are present and address encryption, secure transmission, and obligations during and after contract termination. In addition to that, we also assessed whether vendor access to city information systems is governed by principles of least privilege and is limited based on data classification and business necessity. We also reviewed contract terms to determine whether they address return, destruction, or secure disposal of city data upon service termination or contract expiration. And to provide a little bit of background regarding the review, the City of Minneapolis has progressively increased its reliance on third-party SaaS platforms to support core municipal operations, enhance service delivery, and meet internal and external demands for digital services. These platforms are cloud-based solutions that are hosted and maintained by external vendors and accessed by city departments via secure internet connections. SaaS platforms are actively used to perform critical city operations, including permitting, workforce scheduling, financial information processing, public safety operations, and resident engagement services. To support these functions, the city has implemented and structured procurement and contracting practices to govern the third-party SaaS engagement. These practices are designed to enforce data protection, ensure system availability, and maintain compliance with applicable regulatory requirements. Contract development and review are coordinated through procurement, IT, and City Attorney's Office to ensure legal sufficiency and alignment with city standards. Some SaaS contracts utilize cooperative purchasing contracts through state-authorized resellers. This method leverages pre-negotiated terms and pricing to expedite procurement while maintaining compliance. When other software engagements that exceed more than $175,000, a formal request for RFP process is initiated to ensure competitive bidding, transparency, and detailed evaluation of vendor proposals. Key evaluation criteria includes cost, system capabilities, vendor qualifications, implementation strategy, and adherence to security and integration standards established by the city. Moving on to the contract clause compliance.
Mr. Pujal, I just want to interrupt just to recognize that we've been joined by Member Chugtai.
So as a part of our review, we performed a review of key contractual clauses from select vendor contracts. Each contract was assessed against 39 clauses expected to be included in the standard SaaS contracts based on best practices. So we selected, as a part of the advisory review, we selected 4 contracts to see whether there are those, out of those 39 clauses, how many are there in our city contracts. So this assessment revealed that the city, specifically IT and city attorney's office, demonstrated a high level of compliance with most contract addressing between 37 and 39 clauses, representing up to 97% of those expected clauses. So overall, they're doing a good job managing the third-party vendor, but we still overall identified 4 recommendations or opportunities to strengthen third-party risk management practices specific to the city's use of SaaS providers. And implementing these recommendations outlined in this report will support city's continued efforts to align best practices in vendor risk management and ensure the effective and secure use of SaaS solutions. Moving on to the results, I'll highlight the overview of those 4 recommendations, and my colleague Ella Kings, one of the senior auditors and the lead, will go into detail of those recommendations piece as well. So the first one is related to the policies and procedures. The city should formally documented policy and procedures related to third-party IT contract management, including specific consideration for SaaS providers. The second one is related to the third-party risk management. The IT should improve technical due diligence and SOC 2 Type 2 reviews. The third one is regarding the legal and electronic discovery. IT should enhance those legal and electronic discovery, as well as the last one, the governance of cloud computing services, in which IT should strengthen the governance of the cloud computing services. So, like I said, Ella will be presenting these recommendations in detail. Any questions up to now? All right, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, member of the Audit Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present our consultation on third-party software system use and controls. First, I want to recognize the IT. They have made meaningful progress in managing SaaS contract. We noted positive practices such as assigning contract manager, including escalation procedure, and audit quarterly business review with vendors. And these actions has demonstrated IT commitment to strengthen the vendor oversight. As a part of our consultation, we reviewed a sample of 4 contracts. Recommendation 1, policy and procedure. The city should formally document policy and procedure related to third-party IT contract management, including specific consideration for SaaS provider. And in this observation, we noted that the IT does not have a formal centralized policy and procedure for managing SaaS contracts. Currently, IT rely on existing practices, which varies by engagement. As a result of these key elements, such as defined roles and responsibility, contract reviewed, processes, risk assessment requirements, and ongoing monitoring are not applied consistently across the IT SaaS contracts. The recommendation. IT department should collaborate with procurement and the City Attorney Office to develop and implement a formal third-party contract management policy and associated procedure related to SaaS provider. Management Action Plan. The IT department agreed that the city stakeholders should collaborate to establish a policy for software as a system, SaaS contract management, and associated procedure. The IT department believed that this effort should be driven enterprise-wide and not initiated by a single department such as IT. For instance, the Information Governance Policy Committee, IGPC, may be an appropriate committee to initiate this effort. This effort should include all aspects of SaaS risk management and associated procedure and standards such as obtaining documentation, compliance documents, certification, SOC 1 or SOC 2 reports. I want to know if you have any question. Thank you. Recommendation 2, third-party management. IT should improve technical due diligence and SOC 2 Type 2 reviews. In this review, for this second observation, it focused on vendor due diligence and monitoring. In this review, we reviewed the first SaaS contract, and we found out that the SOC 2 Type 2 reports were not consistently requested or reviewed. These reports are industry standard assurance, providing independent validations of a vendor internal control for security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. And also, in one of the 4 SaaS contracts, oversight responsibility were formally assigned to an IT contract manager. However, the RFP and contract did not include clear technical requirements or performance expectations. Recommendation: pre-award technical requirements. IT should update IT procurement contract development process to ensure that the technical specifications are clearly defined, included in all the requests for proposal, that's RFP, and final contracts. Recommendation 2, required all cloud-based service providers to submit a current SOC 2 Type 2 independent auditor report. The IT department should review this report during the initial vendor onboarding and on a regular basis thereafter, e.g. annual or upon the renewal, to assess whether this provider continue to maintain effective control related to security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Recommendation 3, ensure that the IT contract manager perform regular monitoring of vendor performance against service level expectation, document compliance review, track service level adherence, and address any deficiency in a timely manner. Management action plan. Pre-award technical requirements. The audit review a variety of RFPs and the resulting contract over a wide range of years. The example provided in the observation reference an RFP and contract from 2022. Since then, IT has standardized its processing and template to require a technical requirement in its RFP. SOC 2 report review process. IT will work with the City Attorney Office to include contract language requiring SOC 1 Type 2 or SOC 2 Type 2 as appropriate for services being provided under the contract. Ongoing contract oversight. IT agreed that is a need for continuous monitoring of third-party SaaS provider. IT currently review its SaaS contract on a reactive basis, expanding the monitoring services to all third-party SaaS contracts will require a significant investment in resources and personnel, the IT department will need additional budget to put this effort into effect. I want to know if you have any question concerning this.
One question I have is just generally around liability in the event of a data breach. Are there clear either contract terms or is there clarity on who would be liable in the event of a data breach, especially with some of the SaaS providers?
Well, for this one, the press since if all this thing is being addressed in the contract and we have all this clause in the contract, if in the case of the data breach, one of the things we are going to put into consideration, the vendor will be the liability because there is an agreement between the cities and the vendor that if this kind of things happen, these are the things they have to put in place. So that's why we are looking at this in this contract if the contract has all these clauses in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Recommendation 3, legal and electronic discovery. IT should enhance legal and electronic discovery. Our third observation relates to legal and data protection provision in SaaS contracts. A, access to security results. We noted that the IT does not consistently receive regular or proactive access to important security information from vendor. For example, while some contract reference certification like ISO 27101 or SAS 16, they do not require vendor to routinely share the result of vulnerability scan, penetration test, also or detailed performance report. In one of the contracts we review, IT could request the information, but the current language does not grant the city the right to initiate the independent testing or receive a detailed security result from the vendor. B, encryption requirement for data in transit, at rest, and in backup. We also observed there is an opportunity to expand how encryption requirements are defined. In one of the first SaaS contracts we reviewed, encryption was specified for data when being transmitted as data in transit, but there is no requirement for encryption of stored data, data at rest, or backup. Why this is matter is because legal and data protection provision in SaaS contracts are critical because they are set as a ground rule for how the vendor must protect the city data and how IT can hold them accountable. And without this clear requirement, the IT ability to enforce data security and monitor vendor practice is weakened. Recommendation. IT management and the city attorney office should collaborate to develop a standard contract language and a pre-execution review checklist that ensure that all SaaS contracts include the following. 1. The language about timely access to detailed security and performance testing results. This should include, at a minimum, regular delivery of vulnerability assessment and penetration testing summaries, access to performance monitoring dashboards or report upon request, provisions that allow the city to initiate or commission independent testing when warranted. This requirement will enable the city to continuously assess the vendor security posture, monitor the service performance, and respond to potential risk more effectively. Recommendation 2. Evaluation criteria in RFP and proposal review process that address legal, regulatory, electronic discovery readiness. This criteria should include the expectation for encryption standard across all the data states, in transit, at rest, and in backup, as well as assurance of breach notification protocol and post-termination data handling. For active high-risk SaaS contracts, accept the feasibility negotiation contract amendment to incorporate the missing provision, and also where these amendments are not practical, document the residual risk, and also to ensure the compensation control, e.g. SLAs, that service level agreement, monitoring are in place. Management action plan. IT will work with the City Attorney's Office to include the contract language required security and performance testing result in its SaaS agreement. Please note that some vendor may not agree with including this language in the agreement. An exception process will need to be established, taking into account discussion with the department that will be using the SaaS system. If vendor agree to this contract language and provide the necessary documents assessment, IT will need to invest in additional personnel to review and mitigate any deficiency contained in the result. The IT department will need additional budget to put this into effect. The assessment review a variety of RFP and resulting contracts over a wide range of years. IT has recently standardized its process and template Okay, I think that one is a duplication. Sorry about that. Recommendation 4, governance of cloud computing and services. IT should strengthen the governance of cloud computing services. In one of the 4 contracts that we review, we observed that IT has included some positive elements, such as identifying project managers on both sides, defining escalation procedures, and scheduling a quarterly business review. This practice helped build a strong working relationship with the vendors. However, the SaaS contract did not include the several elements that are part of formal governance framework for long-term vendor oversight. Specifically, we found out that contract did not establish a governance charter or steering committee to guide oversight, establish a defined long-term roles and responsibility for strategic decision making, require periodic governance review or collaborating checkpoint to address emerging risk or changes in services. Recommendation: IT should collaborate with the procurement and city attorney's office to establish and formalize a governance responsibility for all cloud-based services and third-party software contracts. This should clearly define a roles and accountability for vendor oversight, performance, and compliance management and risk mitigation. This responsibility should be incorporated into all the future SaaS contracts and documented in internal policy and procedure to ensure the consistent applications across the city. Management action plan. The IT department agreed that the city stakeholders should collaborate to establish a governance framework for SaaS contracts. The IT department believed that this effort should be driven at the enterprise level, not initiated by any stakeholder departments, such as IT, to ensure the roles and responsibility are defined properly in addition to significant investment in personnel and technology are necessary to meet this recommendation. The IT department will need additional budget to put this effort into effect. I want to know if you have any questions concerning this.
Member Williams.
Thank you, Chair Payne. A couple questions for clarity. How long, on average, are these SaaS-based contracts?
Can you repeat the question again?
How long are the terms for the SaaS-based contracts that we're referring to?
The terms we are looking at is, are you referring like the terms and conditions we look at?
No, more or less. If you know, are they 3-year terms? Are they 5-year? Are they 20-year? Like, how long are the agreements for the contractual?
Well, it depends. Based on the review of the contract that we look at, so we look at the scope that we look at is from the January 2021 till June 2024, and we look at all the contract that we reviewed, and most of them, they are going to be expired in 2027 because they have already renewed the agreement already. And that's why in our recommendation, because most of the time the vendor is given it is. Some of the vendors, they might not even take what we ask them to do. So that's why we are requesting the IT department, maybe during the amendment, because the contract has already been renewed already for the contract that is going to expire in 2027. So if they can do amendment, and in the area where the vendor, they are not taking the agreement, the contract clause we are giving to them. So in that case, so we can have a compensation controls in place. That's the risk assessment, risk management, so that the IT department, if the vendors are not agreeing with what we have, once we have those things in place, we can be putting them so that we will not have any risk. The city will not have any risk in the future.
Yeah, I think you're getting to my second question. So by 2027,
Yes.
all SaaS contracts will comply to the recommendations that you're referring to in here?
No.
No.
So this recommendation, because this is a consultation at this time, so what we are looking at if they have this process in place. So now, since there is some contract that they are expiring, I'm using the 2027 as an example. So at this time, we can do an amendment with the contract that we have that is going to expire in 2027.
Okay, I think I'm correct.
And I can expand on that. So basically, this is like a advisory review, so it's not like assurance, like audit type. So normally we don't have any. We do have the recommendation and the management action plan, but we don't have like a the tentative timeline by when it has to be completed. So it's just like normally what happens is like whenever we perform any advisory service, a couple of years down the line, we do a detailed audit. And so basically, it's their time to work on some of those management action plans, so that by the time we go and perform any audit, those things has to be remediated. But since it's like an advisory service, we don't ask them for like any regular follow-up or certain tentative timeline to complete those recommendations. And at this time, I also like to acknowledge Paul Cameron, our city information officer, in the attendance, as well as Jocelyn Brimmer, assistant city attorney from CEO's office as well. So if they have any questions, because I know some of these like management action plan, it has mentioned it's not just the IT department who is responsible to do some of the items that are recommended. It has to be a collaboration approach as well. And in addition to that, there are some budgetary constraints and need for more resources as well. So if you have any questions related to that, they're here in attendance to answer some of those questions.
Member Hosbon.
Thank you, Chair Payne. I have a couple of comments, and maybe some of this, my first point might be addressed during your audit report later, Mr. Timmerman and Director Pudau, but I think this is back to kind of the enterprise level. None of these initial kind of things around procurement or policies or contract language is new. I mean, I think it's specific to this one in this report, but just kind of another example to add to that list of, that, and I appreciate the reference to the governance oversight to help with some of these items. I just did have a quick question, and maybe this is more of a comment for the team that will be moving this forward. I just personally have a reaction when I feel like there are some clauses in contracts that should not be allowed to be exceptions and have the contract go forward. So I know that there is an exception process that will be vetted among the, the process. But if someone's not agreeing to, for example, the e-discovery language to our kind of level of acceptance as a city, And also, we don't have the liability language in there. It feels like those two are going to be kind of critical to see if we even move forward with a contract. So I don't know what the process is for working with that team to say, is this really a niche thing that we have to move forward with this vendor, or can we move to a different list in the procurement policy? So just a comment for those, and if you have any thoughts on those kind of exception
I
processes.
mean, normally, from my understanding, there is like some of those liability clause included as a part of the contract as well. It depends on basically, sometimes the language is based on if is it because of like city's fault that happened, or like is it like a vendor's fault, right? So it also depends under those circumstances as well. And some of those clauses that were missing, it's not that we didn't try to add those as a part of the contract. We tried, but based on like how big of a city is, right? Because when you're negotiating with the vendors, sometimes the city might not have that sway to add all those clauses that we would like to. So it also, so there are like so many things going on to make sure like how much sway the city has over those vendors. And sometimes, city is like a small client compared to other big private companies. So it also depends on those things as well.
No, understand that absolutely. And I think just back to the business need of the city, like those should try to at least be a talking point in the exception process. And then I think just the last comment, I think a lot of these that we see come through, budget is a reality, resources are a reality. And I don't think I necessarily need comment on this, but these feel like when it's data and privacy and liability, I know the budget headcount is always a struggle, but just wanted to comment that for the record that this should be prioritized somehow. I don't know how that works, but it seems to be a common thing right now in a lot of these audits.
Also, Chair Payne and audit committee member husband, like even in the past, like IT has tried to obtain some of those budget to perform like an enterprise-wide risk assessment as well. So they weren't able to secure that in the past. So I don't know if Paul would like to come up front and comment on those things. So.
Welcome.
Welcome. My name's Paul Cameron. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the city. And I guess, is there a specific question around the budget piece that you're looking for?
I would so with the more information that there was requests in the past and the budget had not been, or the headcount and resources had not been provided, were there barriers to that could be addressed in this advisory report, or were there other considerations that might be different moving forward after this advisory service was completed by the audit team?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The requests that I can think of over the last few years, and I think if it goes back further than that, is probably stretching beyond where I was directly involved in it. We have a couple times requested IT security positions that have not made it into the budget. I don't believe we've tried to do that for a couple years now. That's where a lot of these positions, there's sort of two teams where this would fall to, is there's the sort of the contract admin team within IT, and then many of them would fall to the IT security team. The question about priority and workload for those teams, I think, is an important one. We, I think, right now just struggle to stay on top of the contracts and the RFPs, of just keeping them moving forward at this point. And so the ability to do that sort of deeper dive into the review of the contracts is definitely a challenge for us right now.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Oh, Vice Chair Singleton.
Thank you, Chair Payne. I guess a comment and then a question. First, just to echo the importance of that type of security. Once again, I know that security, especially at the city level, has been in the news recently. So I think that's clearly a priority that I would want to see my city making. The question I had was, there were two recommendations that the management action plan said were best addressed at the enterprise level. And the first, I think there was a home for that, for which committee should take the lead. the Information Governance Policy Committee. For the second recommendation around establishing a governance framework for SaaS contracts, do you have thoughts on who should be taking the lead on that so that it's not something that dies for lack of somebody making sure that it moves forward?
Yeah, Vice Chair, thank you for the question. I would say that we're in the early phases right now within the city of trying to create more of an enterprise governance framework around technology. We've recently created what's called the Technology Improvement Plan, which is very much an enterprise-driven process that is, at this point in time, kind of budget-driven, sort of on an annual basis. And the goal that I have is to try to expand that into more of an enterprise framework to tackle some of these other kind of technology governance issues that are coming up. And so I think that is one of kind of iterative improvements around that existing group that we have right now.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I will direct the clerk to receive and file this report and move to direct staff to publish the report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. That carries. Mr. Timmerman, do we want to move forward with item number 3, MPD fleet management? Or do you want to do your report next?
Chair Payne, why don't we move forward with the MPD fleet management? We have some updates that we can provide, and if necessary, we certainly can ask that they follow up and respond to any questions. So Travis Cam will provide the update.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Cam.
Chair Payne, of the Audit Committee, thank you. Was hoping to have some management here to kind of discuss some of the issues for this report, but due to some conflicts and some other things that came up, unable to kind of have everything come together, but we do have some slides and kind of an update on issue 4, driver's license program from the MPD fleet management audit, specifically that I'll be kind of going over quick. There we go. So for that one, if you may recall, so the idea is around the verification of employee's driver's license as part of the city policy, as well as kind of just general practice to make sure that, any employee operating a city vehicle or may be operating a city vehicle has been verified that they have an active driver's license, they have that right, and they have the appropriate endorsements and privileges to drive that vehicle. At the time, we noted in our issue that MPD hadn't been doing that. We can't really determine when it last occurred and kind of some of that records. And there was, just at the time when we were presenting the report, the newly created inspections unit had kind of absorbed responsibility for that and kind of was taking over that responsibility to do the process, initiate the process to make sure that any employee has that driver's license program or has been verified. So since we last met in December for this report and as an update, the inspections unit kind of worked through some challenges in working with HR, working with kind of others across the city to update the forms, update kind of like how they're going to collect the information, develop the process, and they sent it out this past spring and summer to all employees, basically a form to kind of collect that information and make sure that any employees, someone gets that information, and they have developed a process as well to review that information and make sure that they checked it and signed off on that. And as part of that, they've developed a policy around and sent it out to employees around the expectation that they're required to complete this. The team in the inspection unit was put in place to solicit their information, do the checks, kind of maintain this program and maintain this process, capture that information in a systematic way. And as a last update, there was about 99.8% of employees in the department had completed it. There was just a couple that were waiting on to kind of make sure, trying to do some follow-up. I think some of them might have been on leave or some other stuff that they're trying to work through, and I'm getting that. But the idea is that, now, essentially, most employees now have all been verified that they have that privileges, and they have a system in place to ensure that they can replicate this. They can, do it on a regular basis going forward, however often that may be. And we're hoping in kind of the next couple of weeks to be able to fully be able to close out this issue once kind of that final check has been completed, and once, as part of the policy, there's a requirement to submit the information to risk management or kind of that final sign-off. So as audit, our department, we're waiting until kind of that final verification from them and that final sign-off before we can close out or remediate this issue. So just kind of a simple update on that one. And then kind of for the other issues from the report, there's different responsible parties, as you can probably recall from the report, from traffic unit, from administrative unit, and as well as kind of those couple of units. And we've been in contact with management, kind of following up and hoping to have them be able to kind of come and do a more thorough update on their part at kind of a future audit committee, as well as part of our process, ensuring that we're able to get the information we need to close out the audit issues for those. So if there's any questions, I can get those and kind of provide those back. But as I said, we are in active communication with them, and hopefully schedules and stuff are kind of aligned better in kind of the coming audit committees.
Member Hosbein.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Thank you for this update, and I think there is probably warrant to have them return to a future meeting. And I don't have the exact issue numbers, and I know there were, was it 5 open issues with this? But I feel like the one that, as a community member, really hit hard for me was, I think it was 3 to 4 years closing out some of the claims of personal resident vehicles. And I believe we had asked for kind of turnaround time on, is that impacting insurance claims and other things like that. So that would just be a note of mine for a future update from that team. I believe there were also some numbers in that report that didn't seem to quite tick and tie, and the officers and the leadership that were here were going to take a look at that. So just wanted to highlight that. We can't ask that directly to the folks that aren't here, but happy to communicate that at a future time or through you all if that's needed. So thank you.
Chair Payne, Committee Member Hosby, I think noted, and I think we have an update with those, and we do have some update numbers they gave us informally, but we don't have that. But yeah, we're working on hopefully kind of that formal, hopefully they can come in October, kind of provide a more formal update on some of the progress and some of the changes that they've been kind of undergoing. It was issue 1, PD vehicle accident investigations, I believe that you're referring to.
Perfect, thank you. I did not bring that. I have a noted report somewhere, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair Payne, if I could, I just wanted to say that Community Safety Auditor Cam made several attempts to work with MPD to have them here today. So if there are follow-up questions, we'd be happy to help facilitate getting answers to those. That said, as far as the driver's license piece, we know that they've made significant progress. They were up against a wall for a little while, and now being at 99.8%, it's worth highlighting that they have made some progress there. Some of the other questions that you brought up, we have as well, and so we were hoping to have you have an opportunity to ask those. So again, please reach out to Travis or myself if you have questions, and we'll make sure to forward answers to you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one quick follow-up. Can you remind me the due date on this one? Was it January for the driver's license program, issue 4?
Yeah, Chair Payne, Committee Member Hosbein, I believe it was, if you can just give me a second and pull it up quick. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yes, this one was January 31st. I know since they sent it out, there were some challenges in basically figuring out how they can collect the information and kind of working on that process. That took a little bit longer, as well as some, I believe when they did send it out, some concerns they had to work with the union and kind of some others in terms of some obstacles and kind of getting that. But as I said, I think they believe they've kind of established a process. They've now established an expectation that employees will be kind of doing this. So the idea is, through a discussion with management, the idea is that hopefully it'll be quicker and sooner in the future when they are able to get this information. So
Perfect. Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
Seeing no further questions, I will direct the clerks to receive and file that report. And last is a report of the city auditor, and I will invite Sid Pudyal and Robert Timmerman to give that update.
All right, thank you, Chair Payne and Audit Committee members. We will provide you an update here on several things that have been happening over the last couple months since we last met in June. We will highlight completed and in-progress audit work. We will quickly go over the statistics for the fraud, waste, and abuse investigations that we have in the works. We will touch on prior audit issues, and we've just discussed a few of those with the last report, but we'll provide you some updates on others. And then finally, we will cover some of the July training takeaways that we had. There were a number of discussion items that we wanted to make sure we brought forward to the audit committee to either get slated out and scheduled for discussion or make some decisions today as well. All right, so as far as completed and in-progress audit work, currently we have the SAS audit, or the third-party audit that we just heard today. And then we also, since we last met, completed a advisory review of actions that occurred by the city and MPD related to an incident on June 3rd at Lake Street and Bloomington Avenue. We've got a slide here in a little bit where I can pause for any questions that the audit committee may have on that particular report. In progress, we currently have a contract management audit of NSD. This will be a helpful audit because it will help tie together some of the contract oversight concerns that we've seen with the Helix report recently, with the SAS report that we just saw today, and we'll be able to tie those together to hopefully articulate broader recommendations for the enterprise as a whole. We're also doing a revenue and collections audit. This is phase 2 of revenue and collections with MPRB. We've got a body-worn camera audit and automated license plate reader audit. These are both required by the state, and they are in progress. And then, as you're aware, we've got 2 after-action reviews that we've contracted some assistance with a law firm, and they are in the works on these audits, and we'll provide a little bit more of an update here in the coming slides as well. All right, so as far as the audit work that is done, I'm not going to go too deep into this because we just heard about it, but this one was presented to you today, the third-party software systems use and controls. The city's response to a federal law enforcement action on June 3rd, the objective of this particular audit was requested by the City Council to respond to community concerns and provide the public and the City Council an independent report and analysis on communications and actions taken by city and MPD staff up to, during, and immediately after the June 3rd incident. This report has been completed. There were some recommendations that came from this report, both for the administration and for the council. In addition to that objective, as we built out that review, which was a limited scope review, we also asked the questions and attempted to answer the questions. Did any city officials have prior knowledge of the federal enforcement action? Were statements made to the public by the mayor, chief of police, city council members, or others truthful? And was the city's commitment to remain independent of any immigration enforcement breached? Effectively, did the city violate its separation ordinance? I don't want to rehash what we've already covered. This particular report was released to the committee of the whole. But when we do offer our reports to any other committee, I do want to make sure to provide the audit committee an opportunity to ask questions. So I will pause here for any questions related to this review. And if not, we'll move on to the next update.
I'll just jump in and say 2 of the recommendations that were within the universe of City Council were around refining the separation ordinance and a discussion around our code of conduct. And just for this committee's awareness, we've already given notice prior to this report coming out. Notice was given to open up the books on our separation ordinance, and a number of council members felt pretty strongly that that separation ordinance wasn't equipped for the current era. So that was already underway before the findings were released, but as part of these findings, we also opened up the books on the code of conduct so that we can also start that conversation as well.
Wonderful.
Vice Chair Singleton.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was late on my fault. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I appreciate having this independent report. I think that that's really useful to have as a city for something that's highly charged. To have like a just the facts report has been really useful for me just in my role as a citizen or as a community member in Minneapolis. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And Chair Payne, the other item, which was a recommendation directly towards the administration, which was related to including in their emergency management planning expectations for when a real or perceived federal immigration enforcement action is identified. I don't have an update from the administration on that, nor do I have an update from the administration on the building in notification to the city council. I know that that was one of the takeaways from that was the timing that it took for the administration to notify the city council. So before our October meeting, I will make sure that we have an update on those two items for the audit committee. Okay, so moving on, the neighborhood safety contract management audit that I mentioned could tie together some of the recommendations that we've made related to contract oversight. This is looking specifically at NSD's contract processing, administration, management, reporting, monitoring. And again, this will be kind of round 3 of a department and their oversight of contracts. And so we'll try to tie some themes together on this audit. The audit with MPRB on collections and revenue. This is to review the design and effectiveness of controls around MPRB's revenue and collection processes. Our auditors on this have been deep into field work. As you can imagine, there are many different cash contact sites in MPRB, and so they've been doing quite a bit of observation and walkthroughs. Body-worn camera, I mentioned this. This is a required audit, so are we, as a city and as MPD, are we complying with state law regarding body-worn cameras and license plate readers? We're on the early stages of planning this review. And then the after-action reviews. So to conduct an after-action review of the case involving the shooting of Davis Maturi by his neighbor. This is in progress, and then also the death of Allison Lucier. This is in progress. As I mentioned, we've contracted with a third party named Hogan Adams. They're a law firm that is assisting in this work. Our goal and what we've documented in the request for proposal is for them to have their information to us and completed in a draft report format by the end of December. And our goal is then, once the audit committee calendar is created for 2026, our goal then would be to bring that to you in February, so long as there's not a committee meeting scheduled in February. All right, so as far as the fraud, waste, and abuse investigations, these are items that we get in throughout the year and that we often triage either with labor relations or the city attorney's office. Right now, there are 2. They are both open and in progress. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Internal Audit Director Siddhartha Pudyal to cover some of the prior audit issues, go through some of the issue statistics, the details of closed issues, and then highlight the last of the open issues that we have not yet discussed today.
Welcome.
Chair Payne and audit committee members. Looking at the audit issues statistics, so right now, as of today, we have 10 open audit issues, 20 overdue audit issues, as well as 8 audit issues validation in progress. And since the last audit committee meeting, we have closed 5 issues that we reviewed and thought they did a good enough job too, so that we can now go ahead and close those issues out. So the first, regarding the closed issues, so the first one is related to the 2021 personal work issued mobile device policies and controls audit. So as a part of that, we were able to close out 2 issues. Issue number 1, policy and procedures, as well as issue number 5, mobile device management, because one of the issues we had in the past was the policy and procedures had already been drafted, but it was not formally accepted and established. So now that has been done. So because some of those other issues are related to this one, so once we have established this one, and then we were gonna move forward to close out some of the other issues as well. So at least, so this work has, from the policy and procedure standpoint, it has been established, and also went through the employee acknowledgement through the learning and development system as well. So all the employees has been made aware of the change in the policy and procedures. So right now we have like 3 audit issues remaining in this report. So the next closed audit issue is related to the 2022 hiring and promotion process audit. So the one that is being closed is the issue number 13, workforce development. And for this audit, we have 3 issues remain from this report. So 2 are in validation in progress and 1 is still overdue. But at least management is currently working on resolving some of those issues as well. So the next closed audit issue is related to the 2023 P-card spending audit. So that issue number 1, policy and procedures, has been completed, and we have 2 more issues remaining from this audit report. So the next closed audit issue is related to the 2024 NCR city funding to neighborhood organizations. So for this one, issue number 1, development finance division reimbursement process. So they resolved some of those issues that they had. And so we have 3 audit issues remaining from this report. So 1 is overdue, so the other 2 are not due till October, sometime in October and in January of 2026. So moving forward to the open audit issues. So these are the list of reports for which we have at least 1 audit issues that are still open. And as requested in the past, so we have listed all the audit name, issue number, and title, and also what was the rating and when the issue date was, and whether it's open, overdue, or validation is progress. We have listed in the next few slides so that it's helpful for the audit committee to look at a little bit in detail than previously presented. Now, moving on to a little bit of detail regarding the open issues. So the first one is like related to 2019 police off-duty work. So right now we have 3 open issues. So the issue number 1 is related to the technology enhancements. Issue number 2, policy requirements, and issue number 3, oversight and monitoring. And for this, for the issue number 1, so right now they have like a workforce director system. So the MPD and IT are working on replacing that system so that there is more functionality regarding the tracking, reporting, and oversight of off-duty work as well. And the second one is the policy requirements, because some of these policies items are covered as a part of the consent decree agreement as well. So MPD has been working on that as well. And the third one is the inspection unit responsible for like oversight work, such as vehicle sign-out, supervisor reviews. So those are being right now, I think, in Smart Sheet. But for this to be completely resolved or remediated, some of the work in issue number 1 and 2 has to be completed first as well. So these are the 3 issues open. But as we have mentioned during our last enterprise risk assessment report as well, at some point, we will go back and look at the new process regarding the off-duty work as well. So even though it might not be fully resolved, but at least we'll have chance to look at the new process and what changes have been done since our last audit during the upcoming audit that we're planning in the future. So the next list of open issues is related to the 2021 personal work issued mobile device policies and controls audit. Like I mentioned, out of 5, 2 of them were closed. So for the open issues, we have like a mobile device inventory management, mobile device disposal, and data governance. And we'll work with IT management to get more answers, hopefully for the next audit committee meeting, so that what could be done to close some of these issues as soon as possible.
Mr. Pudyal, do you want to get through these before taking questions, or do you want folks to jump in with questions?
Sure, I can answer some of those questions.
Okay. Member Williams.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Can I go back to the 2019 audit? That was prior to my time being on the audit committee. At first glance, what I see is a high issue rating and then the year 2019 next to it. Can you give a little bit more explanation as to what is the holdup of closing out that audit from 6 years ago?
So this one was even before I joined.
Sure.
But I think so some of these issues were regarding not being able to replace some of these, like technologically the current system, the old system, is not sophisticated enough for like what needed to be done as a part of that results of that audit as well. So that they're finally up to the point where they know they need to move, change to and come to the new system, and they have been already working with the IT to change those. And the next one is some of these like policy requirements, because in the consent decree it talks about like how many hours a sworn officer can work in the secondary job, right? So anytime if you work then more than 64 hours per week, you need commanders or inspectors approval. If it's more than 74 hours, you need to get like a chief's or like a designee approval. So those are mentioned in the consent decree. So right now MPD is just going through those and implementing some of those in their policies as well. And for the third one, for this to be resolved, the 1 and 2 has to be resolved as well. So they are like intertwined. And there was some of the process change as well in the meantime after we completed the last audit as well. So there are like multiple factors, which is why we're not still being able to resolve some of these issues.
Yeah. No, and obviously before your time, before my time, but maybe just a comment that I know there's not necessarily an answer for. The optics of it don't look great from having an issue that is high. So the committee as a whole said, this is something, as well as your group said, this is something that's super important, but then it being 6 years kind of removed, just from the optics perspective, and maybe that's just a comment for everyone. It doesn't look great. So,
I'll jump in because it's actually really a timely comment about what is our role as a committee. And one of the things that we discussed during our training was what should the next step be after one of these reports are released. So here we're looking at a report that was released 6 years ago, and historically, our reports typically have a management action plan that they're supposed to follow. One thing that myself and Mr. Timmerman talked about is also including a legislative action plan as a result of these reports. And so as an example, maybe when this report was released, it didn't have an explicit legislative action plan. We on City Council have taken this up as an issue and have passed some enabling legislation so that we can include, well, first we did a legislative directive to study the issue, identified that off-duty work was largely being subsidized by the city, and now we've passed enabling legislation to be able to charge a fee for off-duty. So although we don't have the management authority to directly address policy requirements, as an example, by having that fee, we are now creating the conditions for better tracking and oversight of that as a system in the city. So I think that we should look at this as maybe a model of how we should be moving forward with our audit plans, that they both include management response and legislative response so that we can actually create the conditions to close these issues out.
Any other questions?
Member Hosbin.
My comments were similar and on these, so I'll jump in now. Thank you, Chair Payne. Yeah, one question was around kind of just the optics, but also how these are being prioritized. I also want to thank you. A lot of them have gotten clear that we're so overdue now that, within your times here and our committee time. One thing that I do appreciate is on some of the more recent audits that do have overdue items, we do get a report from management at this committee meeting, and I think that wasn't the established practice kind of in some of these earlier audits that are overdue. So I think there is maybe an opportunity to say, do we need management to come speak to it? Because, and that can be assessed, based on the details that you have, but not necessarily having you always be the conduits. And you'll get to these slides there later, but I do always appreciate when we, in June, we did get a lot of updates on some of them, and we were able to respond to those where this just feels like the void. And yeah, to the 2019, there was a whole pandemic. Like, where are we on those type of things? And there's also so many things that are potentially going to be impacting some of those other things in the same vein. So yeah, just the priorities assessment, and then also, maybe just adding in some, if you have X amount of overdue, we do need management to come to committee type of.
And even especially for this one, we knew we need to perform follow-up audit, so that's why we have not actively requesting the management, but yeah, we can definitely.
Well, and that can be a peer discussion based on the needs, just to comment with some of these longer term, and I would even say 2021 and other ones are still. It's getting out there. So thank you.
Any questions regarding this 2021 personal work issue? So the next one is related to the 2022 hiring and promotion process audit. So there are right now 3 open issues. Issue number 5, job studies and class maintenance studies. Issue number 12, related to training, and issue number 16, appeals, grievances, and other concerns as well. So the first one is issue 5. Right now, the HR is trying to implement a new desk audit process that fulfills classification maintenance requirements, at least for the civil service, but they have been working on that, and we might be asking them and provide another round of management response in near future as well. So that's what we're thinking about for that one. And for the issue 12 and 16, they are partially already remediated, but there are some elements of those management action plan that we think are not complete yet. So we've been working with the HR to complete those items as well. So hopefully by the next audit committee meeting, at least issue 12 should be complete. But we're working with HR to close out issue number 16 as well. So, any questions related to that? So the next one is related to the 2023 revenue and collection phase 1. So we have 5 open issues related to those that audit. So the issue number 1, policy and procedures, oversight and monitoring. Issue number 3, internal controls, asset safeguarding and security, as well as mail handling. So right now, at least issues 1, 2, 3, 5 has been partially remediated. And for issue number 7, the controller's office will have to work with the clerk's office to update the procedures to handle mail as well. And the finance department were going through the annual financial statement audit as well. So because of that, we were not able to complete some of these. So, but now that audit has been completed, so we'll be actively working with the management to remediate some of these issues. Any questions? So the next one is the 2023 Sexual Assault Examination Kit Special Project Follow-Up Audit. So these 2 are non-public issues, and we did invite management and come present the management response or the updates during the last audit committee meeting. And same with the 2023 property and evidence audit as well. There are still 7 issues that are open, and we did invite management to provide an update during the last audit committee meeting as well. So for the 2023 peak audit spending audit, there are like 2 issues open right now. Issue number 3, oversight and monitoring, as well as issue number 4, authorization, approval, and eligibility. So that at least the issue number 4, that is still validation in progress, so it's in our bucket. So we're just we are going through all the supporting documents they have provided. And for the oversight and monitoring, procurement has to work with the controller's office on that one, and we had like change in leadership key position who was responsible to do this work. And in addition to that, we did we're going through the annual financial audit as well. So now those things are over. So we'll follow up with management regarding the oversight and monitoring as well. Any questions? Okay. So the next one is 2024 MPD fleet management audit. So for that, all issues are open right now. And we did provide community safety auditor, TribesCam, provide for one, but we're planning to invite the management to come and present some of those updates regarding some of these other issues in the next audit committee meeting. Any questions? All right, so the next one is related to the 2024 NCR city funding to the neighborhood organization audit. So right now out of 4, 1 was closed. So we still have 3 open issues. Issue number 2, policy and procedures. Issue number 3, oversight and monitoring, as well as issue number 4, NCR risk assessment. Like I said, issue number 3 is due in end of October, and issue number 4 due end of January 2026. So there's still time for management to complete some of those. Issue number 2 is overdue, but we're actively following with the management so that that will be closed as soon as possible as well. Any questions? Okay. All right. So at this time, I'd like to invite City Auditor Timmerman to provide you an update on this Helix report we issued during the last audit committee meeting, and also some of the items that we discussed during the July audit committee training as well, and some of those things he will go through that. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Payne and Audit Committee. As far as the Helix report that we presented on at our last meeting, with this particular report, there were 5 recommendations. Just really quickly, I'll run through those. The first was that all staff that are involved in the procurement process should complete a conflict of interest review form, and that those should be verified and documented on a regular basis. The second recommendation was that policy and contract documents should articulate when advance payments are allowed. There should be a documented approval process for advance payments. The third was that contracts should provide direction on allowable and unallowable expenses. The fourth was that vendor invoices should be verified and reconciled with sufficient supporting documentation before payments are made, and that contract managers should be sufficiently familiar with contract terms to understand documentation requirements. And the fifth was that policies and procedures should be clearly defined, communicated, and followed to ensure urgent contracting is scrutinized and goes through appropriate approvals. So if you remember with this particular report, it was an urgent contract to help with providing some shelter during the colder months of the year. The recommendations that we made, we asked for an update from the health department, and this is the response that we received. We've required that health's contract managers attend the city attorney's newly developed contract management and monitoring training sessions. They said this was a good background, however, that they have not developed standard operating procedures, job aids, or enterprise-wide standardization. They said we have a contract lifecycle mapping and process improvement RFP that is posted in August here, and that is to select a contractor that will assist in developing SOPs, job aids, and training development of health's contract management. So it sounds like they're making some progress in at least finding a partner to help develop some of the requirements or the recommendations that we've made. We learned that, I would say that the remaining of the response was stating that they need guidance. They need guidance from procurement. They need guidance from the enterprise as a whole. And so from Audit's perspective, we'll continue talking about the contract oversight and the importance of contract oversight. So hopefully that governance structure, that enterprise risk management structure at the enterprise does continue to evolve and get created, because what we're seeing is that in the silo of each department, there's a lot of we don't know what to do. The enterprise hasn't provided guidance on that. And so we'll continue with our work pushing enterprise risk management to the administration, but that is the update on Helix here. All right, so now I just want to move into a brief discussion on the takeaways from our July training.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Member Hosbin.
Thank you, Chair Payne and Mr. Timmerman. Back to Helix, just a couple of comments?
Yes.
I think I just want to highlight your use of the phrase urgent contracting needs to follow the procedures, because while your 5 recommendations can be done within the groups that would do this in the future, that doesn't take into consideration pressure from potential other administration and otherwise. So I would just say that the urgent contracting piece was a key to this of just the outside underlying aspects. And then I think the other piece, I just had a question. I believe this report, it was asked to be presented at other venues. Could you outline where the audit report has been sent or presented at other committee type structures?
So this particular, Chair Payne and committee member, this particular report has not yet been presented at another venue. It is part of the discussion that I want to have as follow-up to our July training, because we have received a request to present it at the PHS committee, which would be in early September. And that's something that I want to discuss with the audit committee before we move forward with that presentation. So we can have that discussion here in a couple of minutes.
I jumped on that one then.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I guess back to, and I'm totally going, not Helix, but the MPD fleet management audit, just slide 29, I feel like needs to be updated to reflect that it was Auditor Cam that did the update, not management.
Yes, okay. When we send the audit committee material for inclusion on the RCA, we'll ask that the clerk update that.
Perfect.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so
pointing
much.
that out.
Yep.
Okay, Chair Payne and audit committee members, the follow-up items that we had documented from our July training session are on the screen here. And we'll kind of get to each of these, but they may get assigned out to future audit committee meetings as well. So don't feel like we need to get through all of these discussions. But the first was we had a fairly robust discussion on how we can move recommendations forward, either to other city council committees, or especially if we have recommendations for ordinance changes, what is the next step? And so I wanted to, on this one, open up the conversation to see if the audit committee wants to make a formal decision on how this is handled. For example, I had issued an advisory memo with my early observations at our last meeting, And as an example, we recommended that the city adopt the Green Book, which is the standards of internal control in the federal government, as guiding principles. This example we are working on. I've met with Council President Payne to discuss this. I've met with the city attorney's office on finding a place for this addition to the ordinance. But the question that Audit has for the Audit Committee is, would you like for the city auditor to take the next step when we have a recommendation for an ordinance change and move that into the most appropriate committee? And the Audit Committee could make the determination on what that committee would be. Would the city council representatives on this committee like to move those items forward? Or shall we just do what we've been doing and kind of do it in an ad hoc manner?
I personally think there's value in coming up with a formal procedure from this committee. I mean, it has worked out well that myself and Vice President Jagdai have been highly engaged in this work, and we kind of organically take some of these recommendations and take action on them, but I don't want to leave that up to who happens to be the council-appointed member of this body. I would rather us as a body have a more formal process that, whether it's by resolution or whatever the actual act would be, forward those recommendations on to the appropriate committee, so that it's not incumbent upon, myself being in this role to actually take it seriously.
Yep.
Member Hosbein.
Thank you, Chair Payne. I would agree with formalizing it. And as a kind of committee member sitting on this committee, I do wonder if it's worth, as part of the report, that your team assesses what possible options there are. Because unlike potential folks that are in the city, and you all know these audits the best, I wouldn't necessarily know the committee options to be even considered. So I almost wonder if it's a proposal as part of the report and then a kind of discussion vetting as we look at that report at committee, unless that feels bandwidth-wise not possible within your teams, because I know we have FT kind of swirling as well. So that would just be, I think, best practice in my mind as far as that proposal and then review as we do other things.
I would add that to feedback for that is, our standard action as a result of a report is to receive and file and publish. We could add a sub-point to that of a prepared resolution to send to the appropriate committee. And that could be a discussion item of kind of figuring out, well, whatever the audit team put together as the appropriate committee, maybe the members of the of this body who also wear dual hats as city council might have a preference, but that could be a discussion, but the draft could already be ready to be just receive and file the report, publish it, and then forward the resolution on to council.
I like that idea. And I think there could also be, I can think of a few audits that I would still like to have that conversation, that there probably isn't a next step. Like, it feels very wrapped up at time of committee. So, but even with that, we could say this one is a kind of recommendation that it is just going to be a receive and file, where that is not the norm moving forward, but it could be a possibility.
All right, great. Chair Payne, I like that. I've documented that, and it brings us kind of to the update audit charter on number 4. So what we discussed was there are some things in the audit charter that are no longer true, such as PAR and O&E being in this office. I think these types of things are great to document in the audit charter. And so if the audit committee is open to this, we would like to draft an amended audit charter for your consideration, and we will give that to you in advance of the October audit committee meeting. Certainly, it's just proposal based on things we've heard, things that we've seen from the audit committee, and then at that meeting, you will certainly have an opportunity to further amend that. But I'll give you a starting point, and then we can kind of end that meeting with a final audit charter. And so that item can be in there. Some of these other items can be in there. The second item here was a request, or at least a conversation about training for the audit committee members who also sit on other boards or groups such as the city council, the park board, and what it looks like wearing a dual hat in that situation. So really the only takeaway here is that something the audit committee would like the Office of City Auditor to pursue? We can identify if there are trainings available, and if there are not, we can help develop a training and bring that back to the audit committee as well.
Member Hosbein?
Are we saying aye, nay? I don't know what the right response to this one is. I agree that this is really helpful, and I think maybe thinking about it, and I really appreciated the training as a community member too that we did in July. Just it really helped me kind of understand my role, but definitely in the dual hat, thinking that the next iteration of terms, maybe that's a good goal to kind of have that in place before, because I believe you're all on a 2-year term on this, and then I believe our term is coming up next year. So I think kind of whatever that looks like would be great to have. And I'm highly supportive of number 2, if that's what is needed right now.
As one of the stakeholders embedded in number 2, I would obviously appreciate that. And I think, to Member Hosbein's point, I think what we should maybe think about is how we would do overall onboarding for both community members and appointed members, so that, again, I may not be in this seat in the next year, depending on how elections turn out. We both do it could maybe be more of a two-way dialogue.
All right, I think I have what I need on that, Chair Payne. So we will start looking to see if there's a training like that exists, and if not, we will pull from ordinance and from audit standards to develop one. The third item is one that's come up here in this meeting, and that is formalizing some sort of required responsiveness and accountability for the auditee. And the auditee is always the city, but it might be more specifically a division or a unit, a small group. I look at this from 2 different angles. One is the auditee being responsive during our audit? Are we having a hard time getting them to provide us information? That normally has not been a problem, but this could be addressed with this discussion as well. But then the other is what's come up today, and that is after the action plan has been developed, which is written by the auditee typically, and we don't get responsiveness, we don't have them currently regularly coming to audit committee meetings. We occasionally will invite them. But when we see audit findings that are 6 years old, I think there needs to be a mechanism for having them come in front of the audit committee to answer questions and to recommit their management action plan. And so this is something that we may need to formalize an ordinance. It's certainly something we can put as an expectation in our audit charter, but the Office of City Auditor is the only one, beholden to the audit charter. So this, I wanted to make sure we had a discussion on, because if ordinance is the right answer, we can start drafting a proposal for that and move that forward as well.
Member Hosbein.
Thank you, Chair Payne. I was curious if you've done any benchmarking of what an appropriate time is compared to other either cities or the Green Book or any of your resources, because I do think, I don't feel like I would agree that this should move forward. I think a discussion, I need more data or more research on my own to figure out what that looks like. So I wonder if this is one that we want to assign to a future meeting, just to have more, and maybe that draft of that ordinance is part of that process. But other committee thoughts, I'd appreciate.
Vice Chair Singleton.
Yeah, I think along those lines, the first thing my mind went to was what are the layers of escalation that are available to us? And the two that come to my mind are just having management come and then noting whether or not they fulfilled that request, and then to, I guess, forwarding to City Council to make sure that city government is aware that we're not getting the responses that we need. And I guess my question is, beyond those two levels of escalation, do you have other ideas of how to solicit responses?
I actually have this one. So one of the practices that we established very early in the new government structure about the role of city council is this concept of the legislative directive. So the auditor is supposed to have unfettered access to all data and information within the enterprise. Technically, city council also has access by way of issuing a legislative directive to the mayor. And so essentially, whether we're going to adopt it as an ordinance so that we just have it kind of established as a permanent baseline or on an as-needed basis, I think there's an opportunity to leverage the authority of city council to create a public pressure around information that is either being withheld or updates that are hard to come by. And I agree, it should be a progressive escalation, but I think even today, it's not hypothetical. We invited management to come speak on an item, and they were not available for whatever reason, right? And that doesn't need to be a nefarious reason. However, I think the public deserves a response. And so this is a sleepy, wonky body that maybe the public's not paying as much attention to. But I think that, again, we could establish it by way of ordinance to just say by default, this type of information is needed to be required once this trigger is pulled by like the audit committee, or we could do it on an ad hoc basis with drafting up legislative directives as needed, and I can actually work with the city auditor in each of those instances.
Chair Payne, I like the discussion. I think that as we consider redrafting the audit charter, we'll think about this piece. Of course, like I said, that just directs our office, not others. So we'll think about this. I think this would be a good item to bring back at a future meeting because I can get some of that benchmarking information. Just based on my experience, typically 2 years is the max when management puts together some type of corrective action plan. I typically don't see a commitment beyond that. And even that is a stretch. 1 year is the norm. And as Director Pudyal said, often we'll then re-audit, we'll highlight this as a past finding. These are things that have been brought to your attention in the past. But again, like, what is the stick then if it's just finding after finding year after year?
Member or Vice Chair Singleton.
Thank you. I just wanted to put in another plug for your recommendation from your report in June, that I think this is where having an enterprise risk management officer would be like very, very helpful, so that we would have somebody who owns any open issues or any issues regarding responsiveness.
Member Hosby.
I had a similar question or comment that it would be great that part of the escalation process lived in a enterprise risk assessment role and authority, because I feel like that would be the perfect next step before a corrective action or before a legislative directive, but that is not currently a possibility. So I definitely echo that. And then also the 1 to 2 year timeframe is very helpful, because I think especially right now with such high turnover, and we see a lot of the reports having that being such an issue of like, oh, folks aren't here anymore in that role. When we're talking about 6 years old, is this even going to be an impactful assessment? So I really like that kind of boundaries of like, we need to make a decision at 2 years of, is this a redo or a corrective action type thing?
Yep. Very good. All right, Chair Payne, moving on, we've got timing of Office of City Auditor updates. So currently, we have bi-monthly meetings, and this is a fairly good cadence for our report releases. There are things that come up in the interim, such as questions that you may have that we want to be responsive to, or as you saw recently, we are required to inform of potential conflicts of interest or threats to the office's independence. That's a process we'll more formalize in the coming months. But at the training, we had a discussion about should we do some sort of written update in the months that we don't have audit committee meetings. I will share with you, after taking that consideration away, our office would ask that we not provide a formal written update on the off months, but that we continue to do what we have been, where if there's a report for whatever reason that gets released, we'll make sure you get the copy first. You're always welcome to ask questions digitally, and then we'll always bring that to an audit committee meeting for conversation as well. Or, you've seen a number of emails from me over time. We provided an update on staffing and where we are with that. So my preference would be that we continue going forward with regular updates as they're needed or as you request them. And that is simply based on our staffing resources at the moment. And I do think that down the road, it may be something that we could add a written update on those off months.
Member Hosbein.
Thank you, Chair Payne. And I appreciate that. I think where we were even a few weeks ago, having that recommendation and discussion at the training to today, and there might be other comments, but about the approval or not approval of FTEs, I would, yes, definitely take your team's bandwidth and needs on prioritizing towards open audits and other things over an update to us. And I think just maybe circling back to that number 2, one thing that maybe would help me too in onboarding is understanding the right level of communication and parameters in those off months. So I think I'll take that on myself to know what I should be following up on before I get the reports of the next audit committee meeting. But I think that also might be helpful to include into onboarding for future members of what that type of dialogue and parameters are.
Great idea. Yes. We've done the training with the audit committee, and this kind of ties into a number of things that have been discussed, but we're going to move a similar training to the administration, the city operations officer, the DCOOs, to talk about enterprise risk management. So we'll do some training there. We're going to train the new council when they're brought on. We'll train the new audit committee if there are changes there. So that is definitely something we want to continue. Okay, so the last item here, it looks like it has already been discussed because it's a duplicate. That's wonderful. The one thing that I just wanted to add here, because it does tie into some of these updates, is that up until recently, we have not regularly reported on threats to independence. It is something that is required by city ordinance. It is something that is required through our professional auditing standards that the chief audit executive report to the responsible audit committee when there are these threats. So I want to formalize a process for doing this so we are very consistent. Right now, you saw the email I sent last week or the week before. That's what we'll do for now, but I'm going to create some sort of like SharePoint form or something. So if an auditor has a threat to their independence or identifies some objectivity threats, they can enter that. It will go to me to look at that and filter it. Is this something that needs to go to the audit committee? Because the professional standards kind of have a tiered system. The auditor reports to me, I report to you, and then there's the filtering of, okay, what's the need to know? So I'll create some sort of document or SharePoint file for those communications, and then it will send you an automated email with that information. That said, I do want to bring to your attention an independence threat that came up last week. I will follow up with an email, and that is that our budget is potentially under threat by the administration. We have, I'm not going to say that we, the Office of City Auditor, has fought hard for the 4 new positions. We share with you, we share with the council, we share with the administration what we can do with our resources. And I think that there is significant value in the oversight that you provide as an audit committee and that our office provides for the city. I will say, we generally fought hard, and that includes members on this committee, for the city of the auditor to get 4 positions in 2025. These were passed by resolution, the city council approved them, and they were added to our budget. The new budget that's been proposed by the administration takes 2 of those positions back. And that is not even considering the 3 final positions that we've communicated to the audit committee, the city council, and to the administration that we need to round out the right sizing of this office, as well as complete the building of the Special Review and Advisory Services Division. So that will leave us 5 FTEs short compared to what we have proposed in the past. It's important to note that this is, the proposal by the mayor, and there is negotiation and conversation that will happen from here. From my perspective, the Office of City Auditor will continue to fight for the 5 positions that we've presented. But I did need to make the audit committee aware of that threat to our independence. It is a taking of resources that provides oversight and accountability to the city. And frankly, when budget is used as a pawn in how things are managed politically, that truly is a threat to independence. So I will stop at that and let you know that we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to try to fight back for those 2 positions and the 3 additional that we need.
Thank you for that update, Member Hasbeen.
I really appreciate you putting that in this bucket of a independence threat, because I do think we've talked for the last year about different moves that have happened that, whether real or perceived, don't put an emphasis on this work. And as a community member, this is the work that's keeping us all safe and independent and making sure that things are happening the right way, especially in a city of our size. So I just really appreciate you fighting for that and continuing to put the right level of emphasis on what this means for the work that you and your team can do.
Absolutely. So in closing, Chair Payne and Audit Committee, I will just provide a quick update on where we are with investing those 4 positions, in those 4 positions that the City Council recently approved. We are at a point where we've made a contingent offer to an administrative assistant. They're going through the police background check right now. Of course, everyone in our office has access to very sensitive materials, and so it is a higher level background check that's required. We hope for that person to start in mid-September. We are going to be completing interviews for the 2 Auditor 2 positions for the new division. That will wrap up, I believe, Tuesday next week, so we should be able to make offers by the end of August, hopefully. And then the background check will follow. And then the quality assurance and training manager, which, not to discount those other 3 positions, is the position I'm most excited about, because they can really help with some of our templates for our presentations and our reports, but they also will help us meet new standards related to quality assurance. So that one is in the works. The JAQ, which is basically the classification process, is in HR's hands. It should be 2 to 8 weeks. So, a nice big plumber's window of when we'll hear back on that. So we're making great progress. That said, that's where these budget considerations come in even more, is we will have people in these positions by the end of this year. All right, so the The last thing here that I did want to mention, it came up with the Helix report. It came up with some of the other conversations we've had today. The city attorney's office has made progress on procurement and contract oversight training. Jocelyn was here earlier in case there were questions, but I asked her how many people have gone through the contract oversight training that I think has only been out for 3 months now. She said 146 people have already attended. There's another session tomorrow, which I will attend and kind of get a better feel myself for what's being presented. There's 75 more people that are signed up for that. She said that according to their records, there are 352 named contract managers. And so she thinks that they're getting a good chunk of those in these trainings. So that is something I wanted to highlight because Jocelyn put a lot of work into this training. We helped make sure that it kind of checked the audit boxes, but there is some progress that we wanted to report on there as well. So that is all for our updates. If you have any additional questions, we'll certainly answer those now.
Member Hosbin.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Just because I comment on everything else, I would thank you for highlighting that. That is an extremely high response rate to that training. That's amazing, especially in 3 months. I haven't seen anything move that fast, maybe ever in corporate or city life. So thank you. That's amazing, and thank you to Jocelyn for that work. I just want to make that part of the comment. Thank you.
Okay. With that, and seeing no further business before us, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.